We've been reporting this White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki mocking a report about President Biden not attending the weekly COVID conference calls with our nation's governor.
I've heard from a number of governors who are frustrated that they haven't heard directly from President Biden on these weekly coordinating COVID calls. Why hasn't he joined those weekly calls?
And how many governors?
So what?
How many governors have you heard from?
I've heard from a number, but how many times?
Like how many? One, two, three?
There were two in my story, and there were others who didn't go on the record, but we reflected that in the story.
Okay, so 2 governors and some anonymous governors.
Well, Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts is one of those 2 governors, at least on the record, and he joins us now live here on National Report. Governor, thanks for coming on today. We appreciate you taking the time. Jen Psaki there sort of appeared to make light of the complaints that you expressed. What's your reaction to her response?
Yeah, it really demonstrates that the administration does not value the relationships with the governors, that this is a top-down administration that is just really going to try and force what it wants upon the states. And the fact that the president and the vice president only once and only for 5 minutes really shows that difference in these really important COVID meetings. You know, the president said he was here to help fight this pandemic, and we all know that the pandemics are going to be managed by the states. It's locally executed, state managed, and federally supported. And, you know, if you look at the contrast to the last administration where Vice President Pence was on 39 of the 40 calls, he would take questions directly from the other governors. And sometimes these calls lasted for hours. And he would stay on and take these questions. And, you know, the role of the executive is to cut through the red tape. That's what I do in my job. That's what all of us as governors do. And the fact that we don't have direct access to the executive branch really demonstrates that they don't really care about us as governors. And frankly, that's going to be inhibiting our ability as a nation to be able to respond to this pandemic and get through it.
Governor, I kind of want to just get an understanding for the viewers to understand, because I remember when this pandemic started, the vice president at the time, Vice President Mike Pence, was in charge, and you, as you just stated, he was on almost 40 calls, sometimes on the phone for hours. Essentially, the states are in charge. The states are like the quarterbacks of this whole thing, and then the federal makes the coaching decisions. But ultimately, you've got to talk to all the state leaders, especially what's happening with the vaccine rollouts, and et cetera. Was there a stark difference when this new administration came in? Was there a time where President Biden was on those calls, or Vice President Kamala Harris was on those calls, and that dissipated? Or was it an immediate non-attendance of the president and the vice president?
Well, as you phrased it, was an immediate non-attendance. The president and the vice president have, from the get-go, were not on the calls. The vice president joined for the first time a couple of weeks ago. She stayed on for 5 minutes to thank us, which of course we appreciate, but then she didn't take any questions. And again, this just gets back to a lack of engagement and a lack of leadership on the part of the White House.
Yeah. You know, I want to know who then is in charge, right? Who's leading the calls? We've heard reports that it's Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York. And if it's not President Biden, as you say, what would you like to communicate to the president?
Well, I think that's important for the president to be on these phone calls so he can hear directly from the governors, because we're on the ground managing the pandemic. And it would help him, I think, to be able to help manage this when he hears from our concerns directly, and again, help cut through some of the bureaucratic red tape. And while Governor Cuomo has been leading the calls from the governor's standpoint, Jeff Zients has been on those. He's the White House coordinator for the pandemic response. And we certainly appreciate all the efforts of the White House team to be able to help us get information. At the end of the day, it's the executive, the president in this case, who needs to hear from us as governors, our concerns, to be able to help us, you know, get through this pandemic and make the changes we need, for example, with a vaccine rollout, to be the most effective we can in getting through this as quickly as possible.
The White House did answer the call as to why Biden would be making that. They defended this decision, explaining why they're not on the calls. Here's that sound.
The intention was never for the weekly call, the COVID call that is led by our COVID coordinator, to be a part, for the president to be leading that call. That the intention was for our COVID coordinator to be providing an update directly from the president, directly from our work across the federal government to get the pandemic under control. And what we've done in that call is provided weekly updates on the number of doses that are going out to states, which have increased nearly every week. We're talking about an average of about 28 million out to states now. It's an opportunity to have an engagement, have a discussion about where there are challenges in the system, how to better operationalize, better communicate, which was a complaint that we came in and tried to solve when we came into office.
So she gives that roundabout answer there as to why that's not happening. But obviously, as you, Governor, pointed out, it's a stark difference between what's happened with the previous administration and this one. But I just want to be clear, we're not out of the pandemic. I mean, we're still talking about a possible mask guideline update that's going to come out today. You talked about the vaccine rollout that continues. We had a pause on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Now we're getting that back rolling. There's talk about vaccine passports, maybe in the private sector. There is a lot to be discussed with these governors. That word from the White House, is that sufficient?
Well, it really demonstrates, again, just the White House complete lack of respect for the governors. I mean, when she just brushes it off and says, well, it was never planned for the president or either the vice president to attend these calls, what it says is the White House never intended to really care what governors thought. They were going to continue to do the updates. And again, like I said, we appreciate the White House staff that's on these calls. But at the end of the day, it's supposed to be the president, or the case, the vice president, who is hearing from us weekly as governors. You know, all 50 governors are invited to these calls. We all have different concerns, though we have many of the shared same concerns. And the job of the executive is to help manage through that and cut through the red tape that we find in the bureaucracy. I mean, think about the huge bureaucracy we've got in the federal government. The job of the president or the vice president as the executive is to be able to cut through that is critical. And they've been missing in action on these calls.
Talk to me broadly, if you don't mind, maybe about transparency or lack thereof when it comes to media access for the president. We know he hasn't taken a press briefing in more than a month. He is set to issue a state of an address to Congress, a joint session of Congress, rather, tomorrow night. But we haven't seen much of him when it comes to media availability. Is that something you would like to see more of when it comes to the president of the United States?
Well, I think for any executive, it's important to be seen, especially when you're still managing an emergency, which we are right now. We're still in a pandemic. And while I'm not doing as many press briefings as I was before, at one point I was doing 7 a week. Now we're down doing a couple a week, but we're still doing a lot of communication out there. And I think it's important that if the president wants to place the emphasis on getting through this pandemic, we got to hear from him as a people. He's the leader of our nation. He should be out in front talking about what we're doing to be able to finish off this pandemic and help us get back to a more normal life.
All right. Well, we appreciate you speaking with us. That's Governor Pete Ricketts of the great state of Nebraska. Governor, thank you very much. Well, now to growing outrage and questions over a Michigan lawmaker who tried to use his political connections to get out of an arrest. Rob Finnerty from Wake Up America is here with more. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Emma. Yeah, the incident happened a little bit earlier this month, but body cam video shows 26-year-old state rep Joel Jones arguing with police before he was eventually wrestled to the ground. He apparently refused to show his identification. Jones can be heard telling the officers that he runs their budget and then threatens to get Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer involved. He and a female that were in the car were naked, apparently, from the waist down at the time of the accident, and officers had to use a taser and pepper spray to get him under control. Jones was charged on April 16th with 4 counts of resisting arrest, drunk driving, reckless driving, and possession of a weapon while under the influence of alcohol. Jones apparently had a loaded gun in the car when he crashed his black Chevy into a ditch on the side of I-96, but his attorney says that he was not in the car at the time of the accident. Following the incident, Jones posted this photo to his Instagram account. Earlier this morning on Wake Up America, Detroit Police Chief James Craig said Jones should be held accountable.
I'm reluctant to pass judgment, but I can tell you what I saw certainly is concerning. You know, just like with all the conversation over policing in America today and police officers being held accountable, certainly those who sit in seats of leadership, elected leadership, too, must be held accountable.
So Jones was a notable guy in the state of Michigan. He made history in 2016, becoming the youngest ever member of the Michigan House at the age of 21. His next court hearing is on May 4th. It's interesting, guys. His license plate, by the way, just had one word. It was elected.
Wow. All right, really laying it out there, but talk about the example that was being set.
This is truly horrifying. I mean, the idea that Kerry would do this is appalling in its own right, but Biden and Kerry have to answer for this. He should not be sitting on the National Security Council. He shouldn't be involved with any of our foreign policy if this is what he does. And then the worst part is to stab our ally Israel in the back and take up for Iran, who's the largest state sponsor of terrorism. It's ludicrous.
Former Secretary of State John Kerry, they're under attack now after a newly leaked audio revealing he allegedly shared U.S. secrets with Iran, telling Iran's foreign minister that Israel was behind some 200 airstrikes, this in Syria. And Kerry went on his defense, tweeting this, quote, "I can tell you that this story and these allegations are unequivocally false." He goes on to defend that. Joining us to discuss is Amir Fakhrivar, the Senate chairman for the National Iranian Congress. Obviously, this looks like somewhat of a he said, she said a bit, but that leaked audio nevertheless is there. How significant is this leak? What do you make of this, Amir?
Oh, it's huge. Because in Iranian community right now, in all Persian medias, everybody, they are talking about this leaked video, because it's not just about John Kerry, it's about a lot of things. For the first time, the Iranian people, 90 million Iranians, 82 million inside, 8 million outside of the country, we heard directly from the foreign minister of the regime that Qasem Soleimani have been directly under control of Kremlin, under control of Putin. And then even they didn't tell Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, and he was very angry about that. But the most important part is about John Kerry. John Kerry is not the first time he's doing that. He's betraying the country, the Americans. And he as I can remember, and I followed on the news, entire his adult life, he have been doing that. Specifically, during the JCPOA negotiations, you can see, we could picture it. We could picture him as the special counsel for Iranian regime. And we were very mad at that time. I can remember that, because he was the Secretary of State of the United States at the Obama-Biden administration. But at the same time, he have been thinking a lot more about Iranian benefits in this JCPOA deal, which was a disaster, as President Trump made it correctly well known. But then Kerry in 2017, when President Trump was president, Kerry started seeing Javad Zarif in secret and telling them, just wait until the first term of President Trump, and then we will come back to JCPOA. Where is Logan Act? Why they are not talking about it anymore? And this one, sharing the top secrets from U.S. allies, Israel, with the top enemy of United States, Iranian regime, it's unbelievable. But yes, John Kerry did it.
These leaks, the leak is out there. The reports are being ran. Again, just to point out, John Kerry has denied the allegations against him at this point. But while he doesn't serve a Senate-confirmed position right now, there are calls for him to step down, again, based on some of the claims that you've made, not only when he was, what he did when he was in the Obama administration, but also what he did when he was not in office, and the leaders that he did speak with, the Iranian foreign minister, what was alleged, I should say. Should Kerry step down? Do you think we will see that after these leaked audio tapes?
Definitely, because still he is getting some classified information, and definitely, since it's looked like he has some type of relationship with Iranian regime, and we know that his daughter got married to an Iranian guy who is close to Iranian regime somehow, but still, Kerry is very dangerous for this country, for United States, and it's dangerous for Iranian people too, because we are fighting with mullahs regime. And at the same time, John Kerry is betraying United States, the Americans, and the Iranians at the same time, the Iranian people. Definitely he should step down.
That is Amir Fakhrivar joining us live there again with those leaked audio tapes just coming to light. Again, this one gaining traction, though. I don't imagine this is going to leave the headlines anytime soon.
He has not met with House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, according to Kevin McCarthy. And so there's a lot of folks, you talk about tens of millions of people, they're concerned about that this doesn't seem like unity at all.
Do you think tens of millions of people are concerned about him not meeting with Kevin McCarthy?
No, I think tens of millions of people are concerned about H.R. 1 and budget reconciliation and going with that 50 vote threshold. I think that
I'm
was
not
a
sure
concern.
the polling bears that out, but I will say that the president's view is that bringing the country together is bringing the American people together.
I'm going to throw that right to you. Your response to that?
My response to that is, why should we be shocked? This is a man that campaigned from his basement. This is a administration that doesn't care about unity, doesn't care about bipartisanship. They don't care about all of the American people. The only thing they care about is their agenda and ramming it through in any way, shape, form, and as fast as possible. So no, they don't care about meeting with the minority leader, Kevin McCarthy. They do not care about meeting with Republicans or really inviting many of us to his speech coming up here pretty soon to Congress. Joe Biden just doesn't care. It's all about their agenda, and it's for the elite. It's for the corporations, the woke corporate CEOs. It's for Wall Street, but it's not for small businesses. It's not for the people, and it's a very, very much hate America agenda.
And that comment there by the White House press secretary saying, do you think tens of millions of people care about Kevin McCarthy? It seems to be, as critics point out, ignoring the tens of million people that are actually conservatives or Republicans out there that care about causes and legislation that appeal to them. Obviously, Kevin McCarthy would essentially represent those talks in the House. For the White House to dismiss those tens of millions of people, you say you're not surprised. What do you make of it, though?
I think it's terrible. I think people should be outraged. President Trump always invited Democrats in to meet with them. I mean, how many times did we see video clips of Nancy Pelosi sitting in the Oval Office meeting with President Trump with ugly looks on her face because she was so disgusted to be there? But yet President Trump still invited her and still invited many other Democrat leaders and met with them and talked with them. But Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they're not interested in doing that with Republicans. And I think it's very bad for our entire country. It's more division. It's sowing more hate, and it's a big problem going forward for America.
And the president is set to address a joint session of Congress for the first time. This is going to happen tomorrow night. Attendance is invite only. It's limited, we're told, because of COVID. My question for you is, were you invited to attend? Do you want to attend? And what kind of Republican attendance do you see happening tomorrow night?
I was not invited to attend. There is very limited Republican attendance, and there were only certain Republicans invited to attend. And I was definitely left off of that list. I think it's a poor excuse using COVID now that the vaccine rollout. Most members of Congress have had the vaccine. So this is just another excuse, another basically a lie or a myth that is being perpetrated by the Biden administration. There's no reason why they can't invite all of Congress to listen to Joe Biden speak. Of course, I would be there. I would definitely be there to hear what he has to say, whether I very likely would disagree with it. But of course, I would attend. But this is just more of the same from the Biden administration.
There's talk of a Republican retreat in Florida. Is there any truth to that? Are you a part of that?
Yeah, there is. The GOP retreat is going on right now. I didn't go. They didn't invite President Trump, and so I didn't attend the retreat this time.
Let me ask you about this in your state of Georgia. Doug Collins, I'm sure you saw the news on that. You're from that state. Doug Collins made this announcement and kind of shocked a lot of folks in the political realm, if you will, that he doesn't plan on seeking any sort of official office within the political spectrum. Did you expect that from Doug? What are your thoughts on it? Do you have a response?
I wasn't really surprised because I hadn't seen much from Doug Collins, but I will tell you he's loved all over the state of Georgia. People really appreciate him. People really appreciate his service in Congress. People appreciate his fight for President Trump and America First policies and for the people of Georgia and all the years that he served the 9th District. So I know a lot of people are disappointed. I wasn't really surprised, but I know a lot of people are disappointed.
And the census numbers are in, talking about, House seats. Obviously, you've probably seen the numbers are in based on population and where some Republicans can make up seats, where some Democrats can really lose seat. Again, if you just look at it from state by state, how do you read that and the chances for Republicans making a huge push here in the midterms?
Well, I know Republicans, at least what they are telling me, is they expect to take back the House. We expect to take back the House based on redistricting alone. Also, given the fact that in midterms, usually the minority party is able to recapture many seats and gain control in the House. So those are the expectations. But there's still a lot of voters all over the country that just aren't happy with Republicans not supporting President Trump, aren't happy with the never Trump talk from people like Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and others, where most voters, over 70% of them, are very loyal to the president and really appreciate the job that he did over the past 4 years and want him involved and we see him as the leader of the party. So I would love to see Republicans take back the House. I want to win more than anybody. I'm very competitive, but I think it has to be more than just redistricting alone.
All right. Finally, before I let you go here, I want to bring a specific topic up with you that has been really in the headlines: policing. Big discussion in Congress and the country of what to do about policing if something does need to be done. We're going to show you this video. This is from Colorado. That's making rounds. It's showing officers laughing after arresting a 73-year-old woman accused of stealing groceries. Watch.
I'm here.
Again, that was body cam footage. This surveillance shows them re-watching the body cam footage. They're essentially laughing about an arrest of an elderly woman that's suffering from dementia. We've seen what's happening across our country what's happening in Elizabeth City, in North Carolina, in various other parts of our country. There's this call for policing reform. Is there need for it? What are your thoughts on it?
There's always bad behavior from any group of people, but do I believe there needs to be complete police reform based on, this is wrong. They shouldn't have been laughing at this woman suffering from Alzheimer's or her condition. No one should have laughed at her. That's shameful. And then there are times where there are shootings that are wrong and police are making mistakes, whether it's intentional or just by mistake. But do I believe that we need complete police reform? Absolutely not. I believe we need law and order in our country. I believe we need less gun control laws because the streets are safer when we are supporting our police, and the streets are safer when we have more legal gun owners being able to protect themselves, their businesses, their homes, and their families. After this past year where we've seen nothing but riots and chaos coming from the left, Antifa and BLM, yet the media wants to call those peaceful protesters. You see, that's the big lie that is being carried out. But attacking police over it is completely wrong because it's the police that have had to stand there and be attacked night after night after night by these thugs and domestic terrorists ripping apart these communities that they claim they're trying to help. So police reform, no, I don't think we need police reform. I think we need to back the blue and we need to stop gun control.
All right, that's Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia joining us live here on National Report. Congresswoman, great to see you, and I appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.